Hi guys, it's Miss Plumley. Yesterday we ended up reading chapters 1 and chapter 2 of the Doughnut Fix, and after I posted those videos I ended up asking you guys on Google Classroom what your favorite restaurant is, and a few of you guys did respond. I also asked what you guys thought about how Tristan, Zoe, and Janine felt about moving, about how their parents broke the news to them about them having to leave New York City and move somewhere new. So I want to go ahead and get into chapter 3 with you guys. I didn't tell anyone we were moving, not even Charlie. He and I spent the whole day together that Sunday after we went to Petersville, and I didn't say a word about it. I couldn't. Just like going into the house would have made it ours. Saying I was moving would have made it true. So I pretended I wasn't, and we played basketball till it got dark, practicing for the tryouts I would never go to. It helped that Charlie talks a lot, especially when he's worried, which he was. Charlie could go on forever about our chances of making the basketball team. The closer tryouts got, the more he talked about them. He was like Janine in Spelling Bee's season, but unlike Janine, he was totally psyching himself out. And yesterday we read about how Charlie is Tristan's best friend from school, and they grew up together. Coach Styles hates me. He kept saying that day as he shot and missed basket after basket. What are you talking about? I said. I know Rao told him the crickets were my idea. Last spring, Charlie and Coach Styles' son Rao had bought hundreds of crickets from a pet store and released them in the ceiling over our classroom. The chirping drove Mrs. Paddle so crazy she sent us all home at lunch. But somebody had seen Rao and Charlie go into the classroom super early that day, so they were called to the Principal Danner's office. Under questioning, Rao came clean, but Charlie denied everything. What did you expect? I said. He got like 2 days detention. Boo-hoo. But my dad doesn't work for the school. I totally would have been suspended. No way. It so wasn't a big deal. Everybody thought it was funny. Whatever. Styles still hates me. No way he takes me. He will if the team needs you. He wouldn't take me if I were LeBron James. It's just like my dad says. Don't tick people off because nobody's going to miss a chance to get you back. Then he hurled the ball so hard it slammed into the backboard and boomeranged right back to him. Charlie's father is full of these cheerful fortune cookie sayings like, getting what you want isn't about what you do, but what you know. And life's not fair. Get used to it. I know them by heart because he says the same ones over and over again. Bottom line, Zane Kramer is a nutty, but you can't tell your friends his dad's a nutty. That's just something Charlie was going to have to figure out on his own. The problem was, Charlie wasn't figuring it out. It wasn't his fault. You live with stuff long enough, it's bound to run off. It's bound to rub off. It happens to all of us. What had rubbed off on me was a serious chocolate addiction. At least eating chocolate makes you happy. What was rubbing off on Charlie was the idea that everything and everyone was out to get him. I hated seeing him going down that road, but I didn't know what I could do about it. Pass, I called, running to the basket. Distraction wasn't a long-term solution, but it had been proven to work in the moment. Charlie threw me the ball. I jumped and tossed. Swish! Charlie chased the ball down, then stood on the free throw line dribbling, his tongue peeking out above his lip as he eyed the basket. Charlie, age 4, tongue peeking out, planted a tiny chair outside the red room, popped into my head. Hey, remember the water table? I said. Charlie stopped dribbling and looked at me. The what? The water table in the red room. Oh, yeah, he grinned. I love the water table. Yeah, me too. So did Charlotte K., remember? He whistled. Charlotte K. I can't believe you still remember her name. I will never forget Charlotte K. The day I pushed Charlotte K., she'd been hogging the water wheel again. She fell, slicing her head open on the corner of the water table. In seconds, her sparkly t-shirt was soaked red. Charlotte Kay is dying, some girl screamed, and I believed her because how could anyone lose all that blood and survive? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I blubbered as Charlotte Kay was rushed from the room. No surprise, Charlotte Kay wasn't actually dying, though nobody bothered to tell me. I didn't figure out until I got home that 3 stitches in her scalp at the emergency room were all it had taken to snatch her from the jaws of death. Charlie had been standing next to me at the water table, and even though he hadn't said anything, he hadn't left my side. He even crawled under the table with me when I drove under there with paper towels to mop up the blood. It seemed the least I could do. Then, when it came time for yard, he refused to go because I couldn't. I had to stay inside and think about what I'd done. Kill Charlotte Kay? Kylie and Maria explained to Charlie that this was my punishment, that he couldn't play with me, that I needed to sit alone to think about my evil, evil ways. Fine, he said and dragged his little chair just outside the classroom. Then I'll stay. And there he sat for all of yard, tongue glued to his upper lip, watching me 15 feet away on my own little chair as I bawled for poor Charlotte and myself. Charlie Kramer was something different. Anything else would be something worse. Charlie eventually found out we were moving from his mom, who'd found out from my mom. He couldn't believe I hadn't told him. I tried to explain about not saying it so it wouldn't be true, but he didn't get it. He was too mad. He seemed even angrier that I hadn't told him I was moving than he was that I was actually moving. But I got why. Mad feels like it's going somewhere at least. Sad just sits on your chest, making it hard to move or breathe. If I'd had the choice, I would have picked mad too. At home, I went radio silent. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't even notice Janine was an all-out war and wouldn't stop tackling most about how she'd never become president if she went to school with no G&T. Whenever anyone asked Zoe about the move, she told them that we were leaving the city so Mama could open a Chinese restaurant. Her true feelings were clear from the number of times Mom had to pick her up early from preschool because she'd bitten someone. Just so you know, I'm not saying my parents didn't notice my not talking to make you feel sorry for me. It's just a fact. When Janine's freaking out, it's hard to notice anything else. Besides, it was better that way since my parents had noticed they would have just kept pestering me to talk, which is about the worst thing you can do to somebody who needs to go quiet for a while. I just kept thinking, if this move were really about wanting something different and had nothing to do with money, wouldn't my parents let us finish the school year, or at least stick until winter break? Everybody thinks where they live is something special. Here's how I know the place I live actually was. It sold in just 3 hours the day of open house. In case you're lucky enough not to know, an open house is when complete strangers are invited in off the street to snoop around and see if they want to buy your home. On November 3rd, my parents signed a contract selling our apartment. We couldn't be kicked out until the closing, though, and I figured we had at least a month because my parents hadn't even started packing. I hadn't counted on them cheating. Did you know you can pay extra to get movers to pack your stuff before they move it? Yeah, well, you can, and those guys are fast because it's all just stuff to them. Wrap, box, repeat, wrap, box, repeat. Smooth Move was a packing machine. In just one day, everything that wasn't nailed was in a box. 2-year-old Halloween candy? Check. Half a Slinky? Check. I watched one guy bubble wrap an ant trap without giving it a second thought. I couldn't believe how fast everything was happening. November 15th. A month after we'd gone to Petersville for the first time we'd been living there. We wouldn't even get one last Thanksgiving at home. No camping out on 77th Street with a thermos of hot chocolate to watch the balloons begin to blown up for the parade. Not this year, maybe never again. At least Charlie's family had promised to come to Petersville to do Thanksgiving together like always. Our last night at home, my parents took Charlie and me to dinner at Kate's on Houston Street. #1 hot dogs on the planet, and unlike Barney's, it's about as far as the Upper West Side as you can get and still be in Manhattan. so going there was a big deal. In the car on the way downtown, Charlie and I made bets on how many hot dogs we'd put away. 6 is my record. I did eat 7 one time, but I don't count it because I had to use one of Zoe's buckets on the way home. 7 and 7 hot dogs, that's a lot of hot dogs. Charlie beat me that night by a good 3 hot dogs. I had to stop halfway through my second. It didn't taste right. Nothing tasted right. Not even the Dr. Brown's cream soda. I guess goodbye is that everything is different now. I won't be around next time you almost commit murder at the water table kind of goodbyes. Mess with your taste buds. Next time I have a goodbye dinner, I'm going to pick someplace I don't love the food. We didn't get to Petersville till late that first night because Zoe had handcuffed herself to the refrigerator in an apartment. They were only toy cuffs, but she flushed the key down the toilet, and none of us could remember the secret to getting them open. Dad called the toy company's helpline, but even that took forever because the cuffs were really old and the new ones had different tricks. Anyway, by the time he was transferred to somebody who knew how to open these handcuffs, he'd been on the phone for almost 2 hours. Zoe must not have wanted to go. No, must not have wanted to leave her house. So then, when we finally got to the house, it turned out that my mother had packed the house key in a box on the moving truck that wasn't coming till the morning. Zoe eventually got us in by squeezing through a cat door we found after stumbling around the porch in the dark looking for doors or windows that had been left unlocked. Usually I'm not into stuff about the universe speaking to you all and all that, but sometimes when things happen in a certain way, it makes you think about why and what it means. You understand, right? If we all had been dying to get into that house, wouldn't someone have remembered to take the key? Wouldn't one of us have remembered the trick to opening Zoe's handcuffs? So what he's saying is, Zoe handcuffed her and they don't have a key to the house. So all those things are happening because Tristan thinks that's telling them that they shouldn't move. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 3. I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 4 on the same video. Looks like it's only a couple pages. Alright, so chapter 4. It doesn't bother me that my parents made me take the attic bedroom, even though it's pretty obvious from the rope ladder that before we got there, the attic bedroom was actually just the attic. The place people put things they wanted to forget but felt weird throwing away. What does bother me is that they think I'm stupid enough to believe that I got it because I'm the oldest and that it's some great privilege to sleep in a room where the ceiling slopes so badly it feels like an airplane. I may be a nutty, but I'm not completely clueless. I'm the one sleeping in the attic because Zoe's too scared and Janine's too Janine. On my way to the bathroom in the dark that first night, I missed the bottom 2 rungs of the ladder and landed hard on the hallway floor. Ouch. Tris? It was Janine. I felt my way along the hall to her door. She was in the bed reading The Wolves of Willoughby Chase, and a flashlight balanced on her shoulder and paused, her bear tucked under her arm and like she was reading to. Don't you have that book memorized by now? It makes me feel better, and I can't sleep. Yeah, me too. The attic's got this really bad smell, and it's coming from this one spot on the wall right next to my bed. Your wall smells? I don't think it's the wall itself. I think it's something dead trapped inside the wall. Ugh, that's so disgusting. What made you even think that? Probably the sound of all the not dead mice running around in there. Ew, she shivered. Hey, how long do you think it takes a dead mouse to stop stinking? I mean, eventually it has to run out of stink, right? I guess it depends how long he's been there. Something tells me Mom and Dad aren't going to let me call Iris and ask her how long the attic has stunk of dead mouse. You can stay here if you want. Janine scooched over and shined the flashlight on the space she just made in the bed. Oh, okay, thanks. One sec. When I got back from the bathroom, I climbed into bed next to Janine. Then I just lay there listening to her breath. She makes this tiny whistling when she inhales because she's gotten a little asthma or severe reactive airway disease if you ask her. Anyway, I guess I'd kind of been missing it up in the attic all by myself. Don't get me wrong, I love not having to share a bedroom anymore, but I'd slept with that whistle my whole life, or at least as long as I can remember, and now, even though it was gone, I couldn't get myself to stop listening for it. I must have gotten bored just listening though, because I found myself reading over her shoulder. What's this about anyway? What? The Wolves of Willoughby Chase. She turned the flashlight around so it was shining right in the face. You really want to know? I covered my eyes. Yeah. Yeah, like whatever? No, like yeah. I want to know what makes you read it over and over. Also, this part where the wolves attack the train actually seems good. You know, for a book. It is. So good, she said, shining the flashlight back on the book. So you really want to know? Are you kidding me? How many times are you going to make me say it? Okay. She turned off the flashlight. So, it's about these girls, and they left alone with this woman, who's supposed to take care of them while one girl's parents go on a trip. Anyway, the woman turns out to be evil and wants to steal the parents' money, and she locks the girls up in this horrible orphanage. Oh, and then there's a shipwreck, and everyone thinks the parents are dead, but they're not. And wait, what about the other girls' parents? Where are they? Oh, right. Those parents are actually dead, and the aunt is super old and is getting really sick while the girls are locked up and starved and tortured in the orphanage. This is the book you love so much you read it like a million times. It's like a horror movie. I guess it is kind of like one terrible thing after another, but then the girls fight back and eventually they save the old woman, and everything turns out okay. But it's the horrible stuff that really sucks you in. Neither of us said anything for a pretty long time after that, and I actually thought maybe Janine had fallen asleep. But then she whispered, Do you think we'll get to go back if it's really bad? Home? Yeah, like if we show that we're trying really, really hard, but we're still not happy here? Her voice was all shaky now. Not at all like it had been when she was telling me about the book. Do you think they'll let us move back? I don't know. I guess unlike me, Janine hadn't been pretending to believe my parents wanted to move just because they wanted something different. She actually believed it. I know you don't know if they'd move back, but what do you think? If we're really not happy? What I thought was that even if my parents wanted to move back, they wouldn't have the money to. What I thought was that this Petersville was it for good. But what I knew was that Janine wasn't really asking me to tell her what I thought, even if she didn't realize it. Janine was asking me to tell her what she needed to hear to fall asleep on our first night in a place that was not and might never feel like home. So I did. Maybe they let us move back. Definitely, maybe. Do you think we should ask them? Definitely not. Why? I'd feel better if I knew for sure we'd go back if things weren't working out here. If Mom and Dad know you're thinking we might move back, they're never going to believe you're really trying here. I guess you're right, she said, and then took a big breath that caught a couple of times on the way in. Look, on the bright side, we're not trapped in an orphanage, starving while some evil woman tries to kill our parents and steal the family fortune, right? Right, she said sadly and let her face fall onto my shoulder. You can read more if you want. I don't mind. Thanks, it helps. She turned the flashlight back on and leaned the open book against her bent legs. After a few minutes, I found myself reading over her shoulder again. She was right. All the horrible stuff did suck you in. One of the wolves had jumped through a train window and a passenger was fighting it off with a knife. Janine must have known I was reading because when I got to the end of the page, she said, We can start back at the beginning if you want. Okay, I said. I thought she meant we'd go on reading to ourselves, but when she flipped back to the first page, she began reading out loud, which was actually kind of nice because I could close my eyes and just listen and picture what was happening. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I remember is waking up to Janine's drooling on my shoulder. She must have conked out while reading because the flashlight was still on, and the book was crushed between us. Her room did smell better than mine, but she was hogging the one pillow, so I turned the flashlight and went back to the... Sorry. Her room did smell better than mine, but she was hogging the one pillow, so I turned off the flashlight and went back up to the attic. Alright, so the question that I have for you today for these two chapters is, what is your favorite book that you have read over and over again, just like Janine did? Okay, so I want you to go ahead and comment on this post, and I'll go ahead and respond to you tomorrow. Thank you.